Let's check in on the Open Championship. Our buddy Gil Capps is there, the Golf Channel, with an update over the pond. As I'll tell you, Gil, you look at some of these scores, sometimes -6, -4, you feel like those aren't the type of scores you typically are seeing. So how is the course playing these first couple of days, in your opinion?
Mike, Pete, good afternoon. It's a busy day when, I'm not having my afternoon tea until 10 o'clock at night. But nevertheless, I put it down to talk to you guys. It depends on the weather. That's one of the things that's so great about coming over here to the Open is it's dependent upon weather, and that's how these links golf courses really play. And that's to their credit, I think, to the R&A and the setup of these golf courses. They set it up in a way to where, it's whatever Mother Nature kind of gives them. If it's nice weather and there's no wind, they're gonna shoot fairly low. But and they don't try to trick up golf courses too much to affect scores in a negative way. And then if the weather isn't very good, if it's windy, if it's rainy like it was today, players have their hands full. Yesterday, the first round, 39 players shot rounds under par. So we had 39 players under par for the championship. And now, after 36 holes, we have a grand total of 9 players who are under par for the championship. So tomorrow, it's supposed to be a little bit better weather day, not a lot of rain, not a lot of wind. So I think players can be a little more aggressive tomorrow out on the golf course, and it's set up to be a great weekend with guys we've got up there on the leaderboard.
Gil, the leaderboard right now, as it stands, has a lot of American flags in the one I'm looking at, including Spieth and Matt Kuchar, and Brooks Koepka, Gary Woodland. Which of the American names, even Bubba Watson, who doesn't traditionally play well at British Opens, is tied for 10th. Which of the American names are you surprised to see as high as they are?
Wow. I off the top of my head, I would probably say just a Gary Woodland. I mean, he has 70, 69. Those are two really good scores around this tough Birkdale layout. He's had stretches where he's played okay, but he's a bomber. He's a really long hitter, and Birkdale is if you go back in its history and how people play it, it's really more almost than any other of these golf courses on the open road. It's a fairways and greens golf course. It's really a thinking golf course, being in position off the tee. Very tough greens here. They were redone after the 1991 Open, and at the time the secretary of the R&A thought, these new greens are going to make about a 2-shot difference every round, and he was kind of right. They're very tough greens, lots of movement in them, and that's kind of the player you think about, and you think about who's right at the top of that leaderboard, and Jordan Spieth, he kind of fits that mold because he's much improved this year in his ball striking, really thinks his way around the golf course, and he's sitting right there at 6 under par right now, and he's your leader. And to most people, it's a long way in golf, 36 holes still to play. The leaderboard can turn upside down in one day, and especially to place in an event like the Open. But he is really the guy to beat, and the overwhelming favorite going into the weekend.
Talking with Gil Capps, the Open Championship is underway. 2 rounds are in the books, and a couple of the names that jumped out to me that not surprised me, Gil, but I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised would be to see them put up good numbers. Rory McIlroy, the narrative on him going into the Open Championship was that he was struggling, and he didn't make the cut at the Scottish Open. And then a guy that almost lost his tour card at one point in Ian Poulter, and then the technicality came back that, well, no, he's got it. But, boy, talk about making the most of a second chance. He's tied for 3rd.
Yeah, the drool is kind of coming out of the mouths of us here at NBC over the weekend with all these guys up there on that leaderboard and the storylines. Rory McIlroy, I mean, still, a lot of great golfers and talented golfers, but, bottom line, Rory McIlroy is probably still the best golfer and the best talent in the world. He is so up and down. You don't know what you're going to get with him, right? I mean, you start off, he's +5, out in 39 his first 9 holes Thursday, and he's on the way to missing the cut. I mean, it just looks awful. And he can turn it around. I don't know. I'm still trying to put my finger on what makes him tick and why he gets so hot and cold. But a great 68 today, the second lowest round of the day, I believe. And, he got right back in at 1 under par, only 5 shots off the lead. And then you mentioned Ian Poulter, and, it's been 25 years since an Englishman won the Open. And I believe it gets even further back for Tony Jacklin in 1969, I think, the last Englishman to win an Open actually in England. And here's a guy who is, working class. He's got his family up here. He had an injury bug last year. He missed 5 consecutive major championships. He didn't play in. And then this year it looked like he was going to miss his card, but off a little technicality, he didn't. He got it back, had that second at the Players, and he came over here actually to the UK and qualified over here in what we would call a sectional qualifier at his home club, and that's always in the Open. And here he is, brimming with confidence. 3 under par, tied for third, a place where he's comfortable. Finished second here the last time it was here, and that would be a great story for Ian Poulter to win, and he's highly entertaining to watch and to listen to. So you're right; those are two right up there, and we'll see how they play tomorrow on Saturday. Saturday is always a big day in these major championships, especially Birkdale, because I believe of all the champions that we've had here, none have been more than 2 shots back going into that final round. So a big day to get into position tomorrow.
Gil Capps with us, and yes, you talked about NBC licking your chops, and that is what is this, year 2 or year 3 now that the Open Championship's been on NBC?
This is year 2 for our contract with the RNA, and I've been to a lot of golf tournaments, too many to count, but I think this week, and if you're a golf fan, you've got to come over and see one of these events. It's it's on these links golf courses that are so different from what most any golf course in the United States is like. It is where golf started. It was how golf was originally played, and just the atmosphere is different than anywhere else, and the fans and how rabid they are. And one story I will tell, it's I'm lucky enough to work with Johnny Miller up in the 18th Tower at NBC on those shows, and Johnny gets a lot of attention in the States going around. People recognize him and point to him, and Johnny won the Open right here at Birkdale in 1976, and I've never seen galleries and people swarm around him and point to him as he's walking by or going to the tower more than I have this week. So just as this fever for golf and appreciation of the game and its champions is unmatched when you come over to the Open.
I did notice, and yes, on NBC, so of course that means we get Jimmy Robertson. I saw that piece that he did on, I guess it's the attendance or that little 30 group of people, and Johnny went over and signed his poster that was in there, so I thought that was fantastic. I also thought the way the patrons or the fans, if you will, it's not the Masters, so we'll call them fans, but the way they applauded the past champions going out, the Marco Mira, the David Duval, and in their final go-round.
And Jimmy has a couple of great pieces on the weekend. Tomorrow will be a piece he has on those iconic yellow scoreboards. And there's a really interesting story behind the scenes on the folks who operate those 2 scoreboards. And then Sunday on Arnold Palmer, obviously, this is the first Open since the passing of Mr. Palmer, and the person who really, for all of us back in the States, he made this championship. He's the reason why ABC decided to first televise this event. He's the reason why other Americans followed him over here, especially one Jack Nicklaus. And that first win he had was right here at Birkdale in 1961. And there's another interesting story Jimmy has about that, because that almost did not happen. So those are two features to look forward to, and that's right. That's one of the great things about being here as well with this championship. Just all of the history and that goes back when you have something that's been played, guys, since 1860. I'm not real big on history, but or up on all my history, but that's a long time ago. There are not very many sporting events, outside that America's Cup race, which began in 1851. Not many things as old as this event in any sport anywhere in the world, and that's another thing that makes it special.
Gil Capps with us, and yes, I'm a little bit of a golf geek, and so I was excited to get up at 1 in the morning here, 1:30, and watch as many hours as I could until I fell asleep, and then get back up, and it's still going on. It fits my time schedule for sure. I also know that you talk to the people that say if you've never been to an Open or never been to see what those courses are like, yes, they're completely different than the courses you see in America, and I'm lucky enough to have played a few that are in the rotation, so I can say that I've seen it, which maybe just enhances the reason that I like to watch it so much. But I appreciate you, Gil, giving me the preview there of the Jimmy Roberts pieces, so now I know that I must stay tuned for those little nuggets like the history behind the scoreboard. And I like to see stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's one of the treats, like I said, of being over here and doing that. And and on golf courses, one of the other interesting things about this course, at Birkdale is the fact that it's on a piece of land that the club doesn't even own. It's a piece of land that's leased and actually owned by the local council who sees the value in golf and encourages the club and has actually in their contract for the club to manage the property and maintain it in a way that the Open comes back on a regular basis every 10 years. And the other thing too that's been interesting this week, gentlemen, is not one complaint, and right for Americans who travel abroad and get the bad reputation of being complainers. We have 52 Americans in the field this week, more than double the number that were here in 1976 when Johnny Miller won, and just raving about the golf course and raving about everything about the championship. But that said, there may be a bad hole location or controversial location or something the next couple of days. So still 2 days to go. So plenty of time for controversy or controversy, which unfortunately sometimes that occurs in golf.
Yes, the Open. We're talking with Gil Capps from the Golf Channel, NBC, here on the Sports Bash, who is across the pond for the Open. Round 2 is in the books. Jordan Spieth is your leader. Matt Kuchar, 4 under par, sits 2 shots behind. And so it's making up for a good weekend here. But can you kind of give our listeners who, they follow the majors maybe, but what makes the Open different than the other majors in your opinion?
I think it's the links golf courses. It's the fact that the game is played a little differently than it is in the States. It's not, and especially this week, it's not take the driver out, hit it as far as you can, take a wedge, hit it as high as you can onto the green, and then have a green that, every week is consistent speed of 12 to 13 on the stem meter and perfect greens and hitting it, the same speed every week, and ball goes in the hole, and 15, 20 under par is winning. It has an identity of links golf. It has an identity of the weather and the elements, and it has an identity of being the oldest championship, and the championship that really, is of all the majors, it's the most like a world championship. 28 different countries are here. That's more than any of the other majors will have. And those are the things that set it apart. And it used to be, and talking about Johnny Miller, he talks about this. It was always a major, and people, and Americans especially, love to come over here and compete. But now that it's, that it's even grown in stature even more back to the States. And a lot of that has to do, like I said, with Arnold Palmer and his raising the importance of this event. It's to a lot of people, it's the major. They want to win. The benefits to winning all of those 4 majors, fellas, and a lot of benefits, especially winning the Masters with what you get there with the lifetime exemption and the Masters Club and the winners and et cetera. But being able to get this claret jug, which which has been given to the champions every year since 1873, and to carry that around the entire year, which is another piece that actually Peter Jacobson will have this weekend about that claret jug and all the different places it's been and travels it's made with the different champions. The winner gets $1.845 million, but that I don't think that's a fault for any of these guys when they come to these majors and have the chance to take home a trophy like that and parade it around in front of everybody.
Hey, Gil, you got Augusta that a lot of people think is just a really mentally draining week. Sometimes the U.S. Open can be that, depending on which course you're playing. But for these guys that go over here, is this a mentally tiring type of course because they don't do it so often, play these type of courses?
I think so, Mike. I think everybody's a little different. It's probably less so for those that truly embrace it and enjoy it, and there are more of those than ever before. I think it's different in little ways. I think the Masters is a little different. The players get tired toward the end of the week because that's an event where people go to so far in advance and they play lots of practice rounds. It's the first major of the year. You're so hyped. And I see guys that kind of get tired and mentally tired toward the end. U.S. Open is a different championship than it used to be. It played this year at a place like Erin Hills where it was played more like a regular tour event than your dad's U.S. Open of 5-inch rough all the way down the fairways and the greens, and you had to hit the fairways and greens or you weren't going to win. PGA set up a little more like a regular tour event than the other majors, but it's still on great golf courses and it presents a fabulous test. I think it depends upon the weather, though, Mike. I mean, I think that on a day like today, it is mentally taxing. And when you have a course, especially like Birkdale, that's unusual because most golf courses on the open road start at the clubhouse, they go way out, and then they come back into the clubhouse. Here at Birkdale, you have two distinct loops. 1 through 9 comes back to the clubhouse, and then 10 through 18, and that comes back to the clubhouse. And no two consecutive holes run in exactly the same direction. So it's not like you play 9 straight holes and they're all downwind. Here, you turn and the wind is a different direction every hole. So there's a lot of thinking and a lot of mental anguish trying to figure out what you're doing on all those holes. So look, these guys, they're good, and they play every week, and it's mentally taxing, I think, all the time when you're trying to win, especially if you're top of the leaderboard and you have to deal with the media every day and you're sleeping on leads. And that's something Jordan Spieth's done a lot of, and I think that'll have him in good stead here heading into the weekend.
I like, especially for this course because, we're done the day, so a lot of people see the leaderboard and everything, but is there something you're there to see about this course that would surprise people who are watching it on TV that you see over there that maybe that we don't get to notice on the television?
Probably the one thing that has always been the case in golf that would change how the viewer sees it at home if somehow that it could be televised in a non-two-dimensional format. I don't think it's 3D with glasses because that kind of came and went and didn't really work. But the contours, the rolls and the greens and the fairways, and those pot bunkers, just going up and seeing them and seeing those revetted faces. I think that's the one thing any golf tournament, but especially here because it's subtle. A lot of the little things are very subtle. But the one thing I think people would, if they came here and couldn't see on TV, would be all those little things, as well as I think just atmosphere. Right? I think sometimes atmospheres of places don't translate very well on TV, but we try to make it to where it does for this event. I think a pretty good job is done, but the roars of the gallery and the appreciation of good shots, no matter who it is.
A lot of fun this weekend, the Open, and, of course, the one major after this we've got left. And, of course,
we appreciate Gil. Boy,
yeah,
I love having you on, Gil.
This is really good stuff to hear about the course. And we know, what's the weather like over there? I heard there was some rain earlier, right? Lightning,
it's
rain.
Raining outside. It's raining outside as we speak, but it's supposed to be a much better day tomorrow. That's the other thing that's this poor country gets such a bad rap about weather, and it has a lot of nice days, plenty of opens. You can remember sun shining and having nice days, but then it can turn wet and windy as well, and that's what it did this afternoon. But thankfully it wasn't. It's not very cold, so at all. It's about 60 today, and with that humidity, makes it actually feel not. You actually even a little warmer than that when you're walking around in a rain suit and not with all that rain coming down on you.
All right, Gil Capps, the Golf Channel, NBC Sports. The Open continues tomorrow and Sunday, 97.3 ESPN. Thank you, Gil.
Gentlemen, thank you guys. Enjoy it this weekend.